Welcome to the Nock On Archery podcast, where we bring all archers and bow hunters together from all walks of life with the goal to educate, empower, and inspire you to be better both in the field and on the range. Andy?
Yes, sir.
Ehard, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having
dude?
me. Your space is outstanding. It's changed a lot since the last time I was down. The art, phenomenal.
I know. I'm freaking pumped. I'm on a quest right now to thin down like total archery things around my life that are just 100% archery absorption, like too much in your face, and just try to balance it out with what I like and laugh about and love in life that is in addition to archery, and try to combine it. So yeah, that was kind of, this is the Nock On version of the Tesseract.
Oh, is that what that is?
It is. Yep, it is. And obviously you got Rogan over there, freaking Nock On. And they'll soon be his rival on that wall, which will be Nockzilla, which is my bow that will rival Joe's. So, yeah, I mean, if you can picture me on a big black T-Rex.
You're going to make that
breathing
one
fire. That's
96 pounds rather than 95
It's 100.
pounds?
It's 100 at my draw length. So get some of that, whoever wants to come after it. But, yeah, it's a beast. But what's crazy is Rogan texted me the other day and said, dude, this is my favorite freaking, he's like, I can't believe how good I can shoot with this freaking bow. I mean, he loves it. And I told him, yeah, I mean, because he really has no issue with the weight. For some people, they just, the weight really isn't an issue. The issue is, like compound bows just aren't necessarily, they're not really made to shoot that kind of, under that kind of stress load for the type of numbers of arrows. So it's just like, okay, what you have to realize is no different than when I supercharged my Gladiator. You didn't supercharge yours. Well, I've got to get the supercharger, cleaned out. Every 3,000 miles, you got to like change that oil in the supercharger too. So it's not like, there's added maintenance to it, right? So it's just like anything. When you decide to choose performance, you're also recognizing string and cables are going to wear sooner. If one's missing a strand, like, don't just tie it off. This isn't like 60 or 70 pounds. It's a totally different animal, axles and bearings. And so these are all the reasons why all manufacturers aren't just like throwing these bows out for everybody, because, if you were to take a crossbow and try to shoot it, never mind, I'm not even going to say that.
True.
I said it, but you know what I mean? It's like there's safety factors.
Right.
So
can you even tie a regular D-loop on something that high? I was told if you're above 80 or 85, you got to swap some things out as it relates to D-loops.
Yeah. So like there are actually a few things that I did different. Like, for example, on Rogan's, I use a little bit beefier D-loop material that I did before. We also added two strands to a string and cable sets, kind of per my recommendation. And then I actually opted for an ultra rest for that bow, just because of the fact of I didn't want to have any chance of him not like having to manually flip that rest up, right, where he would either know, I didn't want him to ever have a chance of shooting it without an arrow in there, because at that weight, it's like an explosion. And I also wanted to make sure he never had the chance of like shooting an arrow where it wasn't on the rest.
Right.
So I made those choices just to try to like reduce possible problems, or disasters, I should say.
For a bow like that, does the technique change?
No.
I mean, you stick to the system. It's just
Always.
more. That's kind of what I figured, right? It doesn't matter if you're 12 and you've got your new 30-pound bow or you're shooting a 100-pound bow. Follow the system.
Yeah, yeah. Because whether I'm like shooting Sharon and Harry's bow or whether I'm shooting my own, the technique's the same. You know, and yesterday I was working with a guy that was here, and I was shooting his bow for most of the setup time, and he was like, why don't you look like my bow is too small for you? Like, I thought you would have a way longer draw length. Than I said, I do. I can shoot small and I can shoot big. I said, it's an example of technique and when people break down, because I shoot almost a 31-inch bow, just shy of 31. That's where I feel really comfortable and dynamic. It's where I can pull through my shot and have the leverage I need to really follow through the way that I need to.
Right.
The difference is when I'm shooting, and I'm actually sore today from shooting, this 28.5-inch bow, because instead of me shooting like this, I'm shooting like this. So, I can change myself 3 inches from my front shoulder position.
Right.
But once I do that, it's not correct, because now I have to manipulate the release more with my hand. So I'm still getting a surprise shot, but I'm also recruiting more muscle to make the shot happen, which is why I'm not as accurate with someone else's bow as my own, but I can definitely sight it in, shoot it. And people ask that all the time. How are you sending people their bows sighted into 100 yards?
I've always wondered that, because it's just the tiniest little change in, for me, where I'm comfortable. I remember a couple of years ago, you're like, you got to bring your hand up a little bit. You could tell right, but to me that just seemed right.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have little nuances like that. Do you ever get a customer that says, "Hey John, thanks for building the bow, but I'm way off"?
Yeah, but if they're off, it's because I'm like, okay, get me a few pictures.
Okay.
Because the only thing that's going to be problematic is peep height, because, some people their anatomy, some people have big freaking skulls, and the distance between their jaw and their eye socket.
Right.
But for the most part, especially once I've worked with someone and all I'm looking at is lines. So I was actually telling this to someone yesterday. So when I'm watching someone shoot, like, my mind is literally drawing lines on everything about your body, and within those lines is a triangle, which is going to be, your string angle. So, I'm deciding where that string angle is, and if that string angle moves, how it affects the other lines. And so I'll know, like, okay, where I have their peep right now, they're making it work, but it also needs to be down a 1/4 inch, and then it's going to change the parallel line on the rear elbow. It's going to change their head position to be able to bring it vertical. So, peep height, yes, there's times where I could build someone a bow and then they're just like, this peep just seems way too high. And so, I tell them, okay, I want your, let me see your anchor position, do it. I want your head vertical. I'll get a couple videos and I'll be like, yeah, my bad. You have a dinky head. Sorry.
Or in my case, a giant crane.
Yeah.
Which works in the other way.
Yeah,
sure.
9-inch peep height knocked to send for the peep.
Yeah, no, it's
Talk closer to the mic. You can get friendly with it.
Oh, hello there.
See? Yeah.
It's very nice. It's a little intimidating. But I would think that there's just so many variables in the physical makeup of people, and the tiniest little change in the grip of the bow is going to have an impact on the draw length. And
but what's nice about it, when we just experienced that, we're here with one of our mutual buddies, Joe, and today I kind of looked at his setup and just said, like, hey, mind if I polish this up a little bit? And then I said, let me shoot polishing. It. Yeah, let me shoot it. So I shot it and pretty much got the pin set at 20, 30, 40, 50. And what I was saying is, this may, like, he may have to adjust his gang adjustment up or down depending on how he frames front sight, rear sight, or he may have to move left or right, you know, depending on eye dominancy, especially grip, facial pressure. Like, we haven't addressed any of those yet. Mm-hmm. But for me to do it first, like, I know, okay, you know, without being arrogant, I'm shooting this thing the same as a machine would shoot it. So if there's variable, like if all of a sudden he's 8 inches left of me, I'm going to know, okay, he's either got, you know, front finger grips too tight and he's turning the riser, you know, he's torquing his pin off target, so he's aiming off, or facial pressures, you know, he's turning his head too hard into the rear of the arrow, and that's forcing, you know, rear arrow right, point left. So by me doing it first, it helps me know what they're doing wrong in their technique, you know, just based off that. So I can get it close. But from a ballistic point of view, the arrow ballistics doesn't change. You know, it's just like if you set up a 300 Win Mag with a 180, you know, with a 180 nozzler,
right?
That whatever scale you have for that, for 0 to 1,000 at 0, you know, sea level, if I look through it and shoot it and it's different, I might just be addressing the scope differently than you. But I'm just because I'm pulling the trigger, I don't change the ballistic coefficient of what's in that casing in that cartridge. And that's the same thing with the bow. You know, as long as you're not changing arrows or changing nocks or changing your poundage before you shoot, if you're still pulling it back to the same position as I was when I shot it, if I have a scale that I know with my technique is hitting center at 20, hitting center at 100, if you're struggling with, hey, it works at 20, but at 100 I'm high, but at 50 I'm like way lower than you, then I automatically know we need to talk about front sight, rear sight alignment. You know, you're probably trying to center pins rather than center housings. You know, you're maybe, you know, centering your target within your peep sight rather than centering your housing within your peep sight. And
just drifting out of your peep, the tiniest. I've really worked on that over the years. You think about it, you almost think it becomes automatic, but it doesn't. If you really slow down and go through the process and the steps and you see yourself just the tiniest bit out of line, it's noticeable if you're shooting well. Yeah. The other piece where I've had some...
Get closer.
The other one where I've had some issues is how much tension, like preload, I put on the wall.
Oh yeah,
and when I start getting tired, different things like that, the amount of pre-tension I have on the wall, it throws me off sometimes. Is it always the same, or does what happens vary by shooter?
That's the one thing that really separates good compound shooters from horrible compound shooters or great compound shooters, because no different than, you know, if you took a clicker away from Brady Ellison, Brady is still going to be an unbelievable recurve shooter, but he's not going to be freaking the robot Brady Ellison. You know, he's Brady needs to pull to the same position all the time, you know, with that recurve, because, you know, he needs to build to that same wall pressure and then be letting it go. What I found with compound bows is they like a dynamic load, a continual dynamic force pulling against them, and they group better even if the front is moving around. It returns to center better. When it's very static, like if I take a hooter shooter, and which I've done a ton, and draw a bow back and let it sit at full draw without like continually kind of moving that crank ever so slowly, if you just sit it in a static position, those strings and cables, you know, as it's a synthetic material, so it has rebound.
There's gonna be some play there.
Yeah, it's gonna stretch. Just think of it like a rubber band. If you took a rubber band and you pulled it and you hold it, or if you wrap it around like some arrow shafts and leave it on there for a week and you take it off, it doesn't have memory. Now it's elongated,
right?
You know, so it's like the longer you're just in that static position, you're not taking up that natural slack, that synthetic material is having as that tension is loaded on there, and those fibers are like finding a tighter place within themselves.
Right.
You know, so it's like if you take someone's braided hair and like, you know, pull it really tight versus like start to have slack as it, you know, as it's statically like creeping down, it, you know, it's just way different. If you can continually pull and just keep that tension tight all the time, it's like
You're going to react better.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I just started playing a guitar 3 days ago, right? It's like, even though I tune that guitar, I'm going to have to tune it again.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I'm going to, if I take it out in different conditions, you know, if I freaking had a capo, I'm assuming, I don't know, but if I put a capo on that thing and left it on there overnight,
it'll change something.
it's going to, right? So I would assume in the morning I'd come in and be like, well, yeah, I need to freaking tighten this, tighten that, and get it back in tune. So it's the same thing. It's just at a very different time scale.
When is the first Jocko Nock On guitar solo going to come out?
In 2 weeks, baby.
Is that you're going to be ready?
Yeah, I'm kind of worried that the archery community may suffer some lack of content for my just compulsive behavior of not being good at something. So yeah, it was, you know, I think like 7 hours on Saturday.
That's impressive.
And then, you know, it was one of those deals where it's just like I'm going, and yesterday I had a buddy over that was like showing me some stuff. He's like, dude, if you know, he's like, I can't believe you know you're doing that already. If you can do that, like you could play this song here, let me show you. And he's like, and I'm just like, nope. And he goes, why? And I just said, I'm just doing drills, dude. I said, you know,
Process,
yeah,
system,
I took
repeatable.
Yeah, I took this little beginner course on YouTube, just like, you know, what I think people get from like some of the School of Knock stuff. And I took pictures of like what I have to do in each of those YouTube videos. I've taken pictures and I've like wrote on them. And so all I'm doing is like looking at my pictures and then trying to find them here. So all I'm doing, and you know, this is me dorking out with guitar. So all I'm doing is like looking at these pictures and just running drills of like running these chords. And until I can just do that without having to stumble or mess up, then in my opinion, I'm not ready to go to a new series. Like, you know,
you're blank mailing the guitar right now.
Yeah.
Doing the exercises to build the foundation for moving forward.
I'm trying to get reps. Like, I just know when you were talking about back wall is one thing that really good archers have honed over hundreds and hundreds of thousands of shots. Mm-hmm. So like, for example, yesterday I got 2 new bows that we're working on, spoiler alert, and I pulled each one of them back one time. And so when I called the engineer, I just said, oh, on this one, so you changed this on the curve and this. And he's like, yeah, exactly. He's like, do you have an Instron there? And I'm like, no, but I can feel it.
Yeah.
Because I can feel tenths of a pound, you know, because I can feel every poundage of that draw cycle at every inch that I'm pulling it back. No different than an Instron would map it, you know, as it would pull back. So, you know, for someone who's built that mind muscle coordination to where, you know, that's data coming in that you can process,
right,
then it's awesome. But when people, and this is what sucks about the people that love buying multiple new bows every year. But it's also something that I really like about PSE is that Evolve Cam stayed the same for a long time, to where even though people change models, the feel of the cam stayed the same. So it was nice. Like if you go to an NTN to the Mach 1, which you have both of those, right. Even though the physical weight of the bow and maybe how the bow feels on target and then how it responds, the feedback you get, those are two different things. But how that bow feels when you pull it back is very similar.
The draw cycle is very, very similar.
Depending on length. Like, because one of the things is if by chance on one model, like let's say you have a model that's very different spec-wise to where you're in a G position, but then on another model you're in an A position, it will feel different.
It feels different. When I first picked that bow up, I was shooting the NTN for quite a while, and then I picked up the Mach, and it drove me a little bit crazy because it is different. Once I got used to it.
Are you shooting 30 and a half? I can't remember.
Yeah, 30 and a half.
So you're in an A position.
Correct.
You're
on
in
the
a,
Mach 1.
Yeah, so that's like, technically that's kind of the most aggressive position of that Evolve cam.
And that's what it felt like to me when I
Yep.
switched over. It felt a little bit more aggressive. Now it feels very much the same, super smooth.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've been shooting exclusively that one bow for 5 or 6 months and then made the switch, it was noticeable for, I would say, 5-6 days until
Yep.
I really got comfortable with it. But man, is that a sweet shooting bow?
Yeah.
Gosh, is it nice?
Yeah. I'm pumped for the future. It's been a really, for me, it's been a perfect rollout, like as a, to be able to work with the PSE guys, and they're just, man, they freaking get it done. I've never seen someone who has like less structure from, I've been places where ERP and, MRP and, you're freaking going through all these like crazy protocols.
Right.
Right. And everything, the war meetings, the daily meetings, the freaking, presentations, like everything you have to go for. And then like launch rollouts and like launch rollout preps and like all this stuff. But it's just like, PSE is just like, hey, freaking tell us what you want and we're going to make it happen. It doesn't matter if we have to freaking drive to some dude that we know that, used to be able to make these parts. Like we'll get them making them again, whatever it is. Like they've made the impossible possible multiple times. And it's fun because I'll just be like, okay, well, yeah,
I've always wanted to try this.
Yeah. It's 100% true. It's 100% true.
I think it's because they're about the bow.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are running businesses, and there are business processes which are counterintuitive.
You can move that.
Yeah.
If you want to sit back, you're like allowed to go wherever you want.
The business process sometimes gets in the way of the R&D.
Mm-hmm.
And, we talked the other day and you said, I'm going to get these bows and hopefully I can talk to the engineers. Well, lo and behold, today you got the bow and within minutes you were talking to them. Mm-hmm. They get it.
Yeah.
They get it. So I think it's been a fantastic change for you, and the products speak for themselves.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome because, we're a few months in. And I'm really, really, really excited. I mean, the hunting community, it's going to change some things. But what's cool is I got it, opened it up, looked at it, and I was already forming like changes in my mind before I even had to like shoot it. And so, picked up the phone, called, and, I'm talking to an engineer, and said like, hey, here's what's up. Like, here's a few red flags. We need to make sure we pay attention to this in assembly, blah, blah, blah. But from like a production point of view, let's make a few tweaks here. And also make note of this. He's like, yep, cool. And so I ended up taking another call inbound and said, hey, let me get this inbound call. I got to go. Hung up, called in to Lonnie.
Okay, sure.
Called into Lonnie to, because I wanted to let, the leader of, those teams to kind of know, hey, I did get them. I also, this was my feedback, just so that there was like two sources of communication to where, if someone said something in an internal meeting that at least there was someone else there to say like, well, I don't know if I heard it that way. So I kind of wanted to parallel the conversation. And, Lonnie was like, yeah, we talked a couple minutes ago and, you had this. And he's like, yeah, we're on this, that, made note of this, talked to that guy. And I'm just like, okay, damn, you guys got it.
They've got a really great team. I've had the good pleasure to work with them on a couple of projects, and their responsiveness, they're on the ball. They're solid.
And I honestly just love like the freaking, the bulldog Pete just still being in there, like freaking, he's going to take anybody on freaking one-on-one. So, if you've got something where you're like, hey, I think this is it, he's just like, we're doing it.
That's awesome.
And I kind of like, it'd be cool if you could like rewind time. It'd be cool to see Pete like back in the day. I think he'd ruffle some feathers like at shoots and stuff, because I think he had to have been competitive that way.
Oh,
but
I'm sure.
But in the same sense, like, they made some freaking cool things because of it. So and I feel like I honestly feel like the hard thing about being, I'm gonna say internal, like for the listeners out there, because my first job in the archery world. I think that's, well, no, because I worked at a shop, then I owned a shop for a short period of time, then went to work for Matthews, and then was there 10 years, then literally went out on my own, but worked directly under the vice president of Hoyt. So, I was tight there, and then obviously now, but the point is, when you're internal, it's kind of hard to see what everybody else is doing, because you're very focused on like what your battle plan is, and you're reacting to a move that your competitor made.
Right.
You're not necessarily like, no matter who I worked for, we would always get a competitor's product and try it. And honestly, and I can't say that about this year if I'm truthful, but up until this year, like even Matthews would still send me equipment just to set up and shoot, and I could reply to feedback. People that asked me like, "Hey,
they value your feedback for sure."
Yeah, and it was cool just to be able to respond to our consumers of, hey, I'm trying to put this on a new, whatever. What's your experience with it? And I could answer like, hey, yeah, I did shoot that a little bit. It is a little bit different. Here's a couple things to look for. And it was pretty awesome. But as an internal person, you don't always get to really know the nuances of what a competitor's like new technology is. Like, you don't know the ins and outs of it. And I unfortunately came into PSE, and there's a lot of ideas that I've had of like, I want to do this, and they're like, well, we freaking did that, or we tried that, and then they'll, we'll go back in the freaking museum, and then it's just like, okay, this is like
did it not?
This is a perfect start. Like, why, like, where did this go? Well, I don't know. We just never really kind of, the reps never got it, or we never really talked about it the right way, or, it didn't work with that cam system, but truthfully, it would be perfect for this cam system, right? So there's just a whole bunch of cool stuff like that I'm actually getting my eyes opened, and I'm having a lot of fun right now, because I feel like I've, kind of just triggered a new cognitive thing, which I always loved doing for, I was with Carter forever, right? I was honestly with Sherlock forever.
Right.
I've been with a lot of people for a long time, because I was able to always have feedback, and I love that. So it's cool that
I think that's one of the big hunks of value that you bring to the relationship, right? You're not just a very talented shooter, but you go deep, deep down the rabbit hole on the engineering of the components and the fit of the components and the functionality of the components. I was wondering, you were talking about the inside versus outside component of the business. Have you run over the years into, there's a certain bit of ego with the internal designers that are coming up with some of these ideas.
Oh yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're
Now
like,
you're back.
your idea is fantastic, but this tweak would be outstanding. Have you hit roadblocks there just because it's an ego play?
Yeah, sure. Because honestly, there's freaking ridiculous engineers that aren't diehard hunters, and there's ridiculously good target archers that are engineers, but they're also not creative engineers. They're like, I don't feel like there's certain people, for example, I say it would be really cool if there was a way to allow a cable guard to do this.
Right.
And there's also people that are like, well, yeah, we could probably make that happen because, in the mountain bike world, there's actually like a pivot system, and I'm totally talking hypothetical, but there's a pivot system on the frame, which kind of is in charge of holding the same kind of dynamic force. So, we could, and then it's awesome to have that outside perspective, but sometimes you're trying to tell them like, hey, bring a cool idea, and then they bring it, and then you're like, you would never do that as a hunter. It's like a good idea, but it's also like it needs to be in a video game or something. It's not like practical. So yeah, there's times where you shut stuff down because from a hunting world, once you include like grit and grime, it's not gonna function. It's gonna need like continual maintenance to where it's gonna be a nightmare. And if someone doesn't do it all the time, it's really hard. That's where you kind of hit the headbutt sometimes.
It's awful. It's still amazing to me, though, how well, I spent some time out in Utah elk hunting last year and then spent a lot of time hunting Wisconsin. And, your bows go through, I don't have a dozen of them, but I've got a few bows that a couple of them that I like to shoot. It's amazing how well they stay in tune. And how well, it seems even
it
5
wasn't
or
that
6
way 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Am
5
I,
or
like,
6
wrong?
years ago, I used to have to bring it in. That's one of the things when you and I first met. It used to bother me having to run into the shop constantly to get things fixed, and it just seems like the stability of the entire platform has improved.
Everything's gotten better, but I've also wondered, is it that everything got better, or is it that people have learned to set them up better, or, I don't know. I don't, like, from a material point of view, the one thing that's going to move the most out of a piece of archer equipment, bow and arrow, is going to be the strings and cables. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there's certainly crummy ones out there. There's certainly, better ones out there. And those materials, depending on the material you pick, they do move, but there hasn't been this huge change in material that's going on a bow. There's a way of like making it, but the fibers themselves, they haven't changed much, but they're definitely, I don't know if, like, because bows have way less vibration now than what they did at one time. Cause they used to be very like thrust worthy,
right?
It like everybody had a sling because you needed it. It's not because they look cool and your shop could make an extra $15 off you.
You needed it.
Yeah, it's like that thing would freaking launch out and roll across the ground if you didn't have a sling on.
And it's amazing, from one year to the next, I was shooting a different brand bow, and then you built that NTN for me, and I remember I came down to see you, and I really liked the other bow. I was perfectly happy with it. It was great shooting bow. And then I shot the NTN.
And I think I built the other one for you, didn't I?
I think you did. Yeah, you rebuilt it for me because I came down
and I'm like,
it was
dude,
all cocked up.
It was cool.
Right.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, it's a good bow. I'm gonna keep one of mine just in case. It's my freaking second parachute. However, give this a try. Yeah. I've been impressed.
I had an aha moment over at your school that first shot. I'm like, oh, Okay, things have changed a little bit. So it's amazing. You can feel it from brand to brand. You can feel it from year to year. So it's an exciting future for archery for sure.
Well, you asked me today. You said, out of everything you've ever shot, what do you think is your best shooting bow? I think didn't you ask me?
I
that
did.
When we were out shooting, and I just said the one I'm shooting right now, dude.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I thought about it the other day. It's like I wondered if I took some of the same parts off. Like the best scoring bow I ever had was my original. I had 3 Apexes that I made as triplets. They all came out of the same machine from the same billet, and all the strings were made off the same spool of string. Cams were all out of the same block. I mean, I watched them happen. Sent them all to the anodizer. Like I was internal, so I had that, luxury, but I made full triplets,
right?
Like 100% triplets. And that was the best scoring bows that I had ever shot.
As a series?
Just like when I look at the scores that I posted during that 2-year span of time, it's the highest scores I've ever posted in competition. But there's like variables to that, because at that time I certainly was training more than I've ever trained, and I had spent at that time like a decade behind a single cam.
Right.
So this comes back to like muscle memory. I don't really know how I would shoot a Matthews right now, because it's not even the same thing.
Right.
A Matthews right now is a Matthews that I saw in the shooting. I remember when Matt brought the first dual perimeter weighted freaking. It was a bow that we made with 2 max cams that were made as a 2-cam bow, and it was essentially the monster.
Okay.
And I remember saying like, what is that? And he's like, well, I mean, if I were to do a 2-cam bow, I would do that. And I remember saying like, how, can I shoot it? And he's like, you can, but like right now it's a monster.
Okay.
And like that's what, and I mean, that was late 90s.
Did they make it a target bow version of that as well?
Eventually they did. I think they did. I think so. But I'm honestly not that familiar. Like once, I was totally focused on a 1.5 system and worrying about that, by that point in time. But from a single cam point of view, I actually really loved how the single cam felt. And it allowed me to shoot my style, which was I'm not a demanding shot. I don't like demanding cams. And I shouldn't say I don't like them, but I don't shoot them enough. Like I transition a lot between a target bow, and then I spend a lot of time hunting. So I'm not like an average target archer. A lot of target archers will shoot target the mass majority of the year. 70-80% of the year they're shooting target. They may go hunting a time or two, but there's not a lot of true like crossovers,
right?
To where, like for me, hunting was definitely the majority of the target. I shot target to be a better bow hunter,
right?
And I was better bow hunter because I was a target archer. That's 100% accurate. So when I would pick up a target bow that had a very demanding cam, coming from bow hunting the month before that, where I wanted to be able to pull a bow back slow, stay at full draw for freaking 3 minutes, if that's how long that buck was freaking locked on to me, staring at me. Once I went to those more aggressive cams, they were just taking it away from me. And it didn't shoot, because I'm not a static holder, aim, make the shot happen. Like when my front shoulder wasn't in shape and it would start creeping, if I had a freaking spiral cam system, it would just eat my lunch,
right?
Because as I collapsed, it was just like freaking let me have it.
Is it an issue of the aggressive nature, where it's just a harder or a higher hold, or is it just the total functionality of it?
Well, it's like like with the cams that we're both shooting right now, you can pull them back, and honestly, I feel like I could have a sandwich.
Yeah, hold them forever for sure.
Yeah, I could be back there and hold a sandwich. Now, from a target archery point of view, and actually right now, even on my personal bows with the Evolve cams, with the EC cams, I've actually got them, instead of them being on the 90% position, I've got them extended all the way out, so they're actually on the 80% in the high let off mod, and I feel like it's the perfect one. It's legal in all states. But two, it's like the perfect hybrid for me to, like, if I shoot it enough, I'm not as lazy as that 90% let off can let you be. But I also feel like it, when it's like lock time. So when your release breaks, if you have a super high let off bow, there's like a lock time where that string is still within, an area of your face as that cam is ramping up before it's taking away. So if you're not in practice and you're making, especially if you have facial pressure,
right,
it's going to magnify because that lock time's higher. So that's why for target archers, they're trying to have a very short lock time. So they're shooting a very low let off cam. However, because they're shooting a lower let off cam, they can't hold the weight at the weight that we're shooting. So a lot of times you'll notice that they're shooting less weight, but also with a lower let off. So their overall holding weight might be the same as if they were bow hunting,
but they're shooting a lighter bow.
But they're able to have a shorter lock time because of that lower let off,
right,
for when the release actually breaks. But all that stuff, like, to learn that is just time, like a lot of freaking time.
A lot of reps, yeah. That, I love to shoot, and I shoot a fair amount, but I couldn't tell you, I couldn't feel those minute differences that you feel. I wouldn't do it, I can tell this bow's a hell of a lot heavier than that one, or boy, that's a little bit more aggressive. And you get used to it, and then it's just fine. But, it's like you taking a bow and looking at it and saying, well, this is out of whack and that's out of whack.
Hey, a buddy of mine, Wes, is like, it's actually really cool because there's like a side of me that really is like fascinated with, I'm a projectile enthusiast.
Right.
Like that's Evan's trademark, right?
That's right.
So, and it's such a perfect saying because I do, like, even though I'm not a gun hunter or like public about guns, I freaking love guns. And, there's a freaking legit place, Rogue Tactical, down in Houston, that freaking dials in super legit custom setups, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, I've got some.
Yeah.
I've got some. And it's rare that you would see it, but I've got them. So, if I want to know anything like about anything, just name it, about like, ammunition or a freaking aiming reticle, or like, hey, why are someone using this lever on the back of this? Like, he's freaking on it. But then he also freaking jams on guitar. So like, I was showing him this note and I said, dude, this chord is tough, right? And he just right away is like, pressing too hard, try to do it again, but don't press hard on the ring finger.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, thanks.
It's that level of experience. That's what's so great.
Because he just knew the string, knew the fret, knew what you can do that string in that fret, like based on where it was. He's like, yeah, it's so far out, like you're not having to press that hard. So
because he's done it a million times.
Yeah, a trillion probably.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that's so great about the Nock On Nation and the community that you and Sharon have built. There's a lot of people that have really unique talents in whether it's archery, cooking, everything else. You're at the top of the organization, and you're so generous with your time and sharing these things. But what I found really amazing is the people within the organization that get to know each other and build friendships. They're constantly helping each other out. It doesn't matter. I mean, it was funny. I was building a deck this summer, and one of the guys in the nation is a deck builder out in Nebraska. And I'm like, called him. I said, I think I'm getting screwed on my bids. And he's like, you are getting screwed on your bids. But it's an interesting community.
Dude, I wish
so
we could
cool.
sign up. Like, honestly, I feel like we need to have a spot where people could sign up and like put in what their trade is and what they're good at. Because, you know, if freaking all hell breaks loose, like we could the Nock On Nation could like run a town somewhere.
It's a powerful force.
I'll guarantee
it is a powerful force. It really is.
And honestly, I never even introduced you, but so for those of you listening, Andy freaking reached out in a DM. Like, how long ago was it?
3.5, 4 years maybe.
Yeah, and I think the reason you said you're like, do you still hot tub? Because I think I like told you like, hey dude, you said like, thanks for replying. And I said, yeah, I mean, I hot tub in the morning, you know, to try to get loosened up. And I reply to DMs when I'm in the hot tub, you know, and so we started talking and ended up becoming like awesome friends. And you came out to like the very first Nock On experience out in Park City, which you're coming to again.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And you're, 4 hours away?
Yeah, 4 hours up in the cities.
So a couple times a year we see each other, you know, we hook up. And you called me when you saw I got a Gladiator and you're like, hey, you know, my boy's looking to get a Jeep Cherokee. What do you think? And I'm just like, dude, let's freaking pull back on that and let me introduce you to like Bo down here at freaking Southtown.
They took good care of me.
They're freaking legit.
Twice.
Yeah, now you've got one, which you did in true dad fashion, like let your boy know like who is gonna have the better ride.
Yeah, but he's every day it's something new. I mean, he makes money, it goes into his Jeep, but he's having a great time with it. What are you going to do? He works hard. He's got great grades. What are you going to do? Let him have a good time. But yeah, I bought it for him. And
what was your high school car?
Well, none. So what happened is I wanted to go buy a car in high school. So I'm a little older than you. I would graduate high school in 87.
Okay.
And I wanted to buy a car because I was always employed, always working for my parents' business, grandfather's business. So I had a little bit of money in my pocket. And my parents are like, nope, you're going to put that away for school. You will not have a car. And then my dad came home with so this would have been 84, 85 with like a early 70s wood-paneled Griswold wagon.
Hell yeah, that thing's... Dude, I'd buy that right now just to roll in that thing.
It was nicknamed Spot because of the rust spots.
Oh, and I thought you meant for the oil patch.
Yeah, there was some of that too. It became iconic in the high school. It was actually really funny. Buddies would borrow it, and you know, we'd do what we did. It was a good time.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
Was it a full like wagon?
Oh, you could have slept in the way back.
Did it have that little fold up section where you could drop your feet in there if you sat like in that little freaking half-ass bench seat?
Yep, it had that.
Dude,
it did. It was
that was
brown,
a shaggin' wagon, bro. That was
I'm not going to comment on that, but
freaking
you're thinking
outdoor movie theater.
Yeah.
Dang, the drive-in.
Yeah, it was
great. You're dating Andy.
Yeah,
is that the guy with the freaking Griswold
not something
mobile?
to come driving into your girlfriend's driveway with for sure.
Unless you're freaking Russo from Karate Kid, unless his mom's in there like waving it.
Yeah, it was classic. And you know what was great about it? You do stupid stuff when you're 16. You maybe bump into that pole. Yeah, you move on.
Dude, that bumper in the 80s, like freaking how was the pole broke?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, yeah, no, it was to this day. Jake told me, he said, say hi to John and tell him thanks for talking you into getting me a Gladiator. I'm like, he didn't really talk me into it, but it's pretty sweet. So he's a happy kid.
Yeah, you guys did was it your Christmas card where it was both of you with your freaking Gladdies?
Yeah. My wife's like, I've got an idea. She put us down on the lake and the dog was up on the path.
I was like, what? Cool. It was so legit that your wife like thought that was going to be cool.
Yeah, she's into it.
But I mean, that's how you get your kids to do a Christmas card.
Yeah.
I mean, good for her for thinking ahead.
Yeah. No, it's been great. It's been great. So now, of course, I got to treat my kids the same. I've got
What was your first ride that you were proud of then?
You know what's interesting? I didn't own my first car that I went out and bought until I spent some time in the military, got out, did undergrad, went to law school, and it wasn't until I finished law school and had my first job that I went and bought a car.
What was it, dude?
I think I had the first when Mercedes came out with their ML320, their little SUV.
Oh yeah,
I happened to have one of the. I was living in Washington D.C. at the time. I was one of the first to get that,
dude.
So
I'm gonna ask you about this because I was like, how old were you at that time? 24, 25?
When I graduated law school?
Yeah. When was that?
So let's see. I got out of the military at 29. I was probably 31, 32.
You went late. Because
Yeah.
I remember, and maybe I'm getting the time wrong, but I remember specifically like getting this thing in the mail for that Mercedes SUV. And it was like, we're thinking about bringing this out. And dude,
I pre-ordered.
I don't know if I signed up to like win a Mercedes at like an airport or something, because I'm wondering why I'm even on this list.
Sure.
And it was like, here's what it is, and you could like, I think you kind of like told them like what you liked or disliked, and then mailed that little card back.
What I remember
Is that right?
There was a card, and I'll never forget.
So I remembered like this is at least 100 times over my pay grade.
Right.
But here
I'm
you
not
are
saying I
asking-
could afford it. I
Yeah.
just happened to have bought it at the time. But what I've remember very clearly, there was a little flyer piece that came, and they showed one that was maroon, and there were literally no options. And then they're like, put X dollars down. We hope to have a delivery in 18 months or something like. What could
Dude,
go wrong?
Good for them. You fund me 1997 or whenever we did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were way ahead of their time.
Yeah, no.
Dude, I saw one of those. I honestly, and I still like, when I see one of those on the road, I think about like how I got on this consumer mailing program of like, at what point someone thought I was going to buy a Mercedes freaking SUV.
Somebody sold your name. Some
Dude,
marketer
someone
sold your name.
my name straight up. But I remember seeing one of those the other day, like after the sun's like been on it for like that first generation of Mercedes SUV. And I'm like, this thing looks like a legit piece of junk. Right
Yeah,
now.
they've come a long way. They've come a long way. It was fun though. They're great cars. They were great cars.
Jocko's a Mercedes person.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He's got like one of the SUVs. I mean, he doesn't drive like new flashy rides. Like his, has a bunch of like sand in it and freaking protein powder all over the place and crap. But
A gi in the back. And
yeah, it's like never been washed. But he's got that in a Sprinter van. That's also, every kind of snack is in like in a seat somewhere. And yeah,
Right.
unless Helen just says like that car's nasty, we need to clean it. Let me rephrase that. I'm going to go clean it. Yeah.
If it's anything like my family, she has a vastly different meaning for what is and is not clean than my wife and I do. 'Cause she'll go in my car.
yeah.
Yesterday she came in, moved my car. She's digging around and digging around. I'm like, what are you doing? You're parking my car. And she's like, don't ask questions. I'm cleaning up. I'm like, all right, knock yourself out. Do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, I'll clean. And in my mind, I'm, when a lot of people see me do stuff, they're like, dang, bro, you're taking a little extreme. Then Sharon comes in. She's like, this isn't clean. This is like tidied up.
There's different levels in anything and everything we do.
Yeah, and then it's like pretty much like you could freaking eat off anything, in there by the time, the Shaz cleaning crew comes in. Gets after it.
It's exactly how it is at our place. She always says, I get that it may be annoying to the people that are in the house that things are constantly having to be so clean, but spend some time in someone's house where it's not this clean.
Yeah.
And you're going to appreciate me. So yeah, it's the way to do it for sure.
I'm just like, hey, do your thing, but can you run the vacuum like either before or after I'm going to jam on this guitar for 7 hours?
That's going to, if you're going to go deep down that rabbit hole, something's going to have to give. The archery community may suffer just a tiny bit.
I'm trying to think what I can give back. I'd probably give, Honestly, I'd probably give training time. I would just trade training for training would be something.
Yeah.
Yep. That would be my training.
How long before you're at Wes's? Just I could see you two hold up for like
He's
days.
coming
just
in
jamming.
August.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but the thing is, like, if I told Wes, like, let's jam, I might as well. I mean, it'd be like, I don't know, it'd be like me going down to the, I don't know, like the 4-H club down the road and just seeing some kid in there and just that, like, got his first plastic bow at Walmart and be like, you want to go shoot for a while? Like, if I did it with Wes, it would be at a level to where he'd be like, dude, just watch YouTube for a year and then let's freaking hook up so we can get
So, I mean, he's top shelf.
Yeah.
I haven't heard him play. Yet.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like he's gonna just go out and play, but yeah, there was a time where he knows that he goes deep down the rabbit holes too.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how deep down the YouTube hole he's been in his life on a number of subjects, but it's definitely in another galaxy than what I freaking know of for YouTube.
Yeah. There are people like that. It's a time. It's all time.
Yeah, it's been so fun at events where we've met like other people from the Nock On community, because I just like, to me, what I'm loving about every second about our brand right now is that we are connected to like grassroots people. Like you said, like, well, I look back at like the Brad of all Brads.
Right.
Freaking, you know, I was like sharing his stuff because it was cracking me up, right? This is back in the day. And freaking Dayton Holloway walks into a gymnasium at like one of their daughter's basketball games or something and like sees him and just goes, Brad of all Brads. And, you know, Brad hadn't told his wife yet that he had this alias on freaking
incognito.
Yeah. So he was kind of, you know, it was kind of like the Godfather and freaking Old School,
right?
You know, where he's just kind of like, you know, like, just Brad, Brad.
It's interesting. It goes really deep, and it's, you know, they're the people that you see online. But I'm up in Minneapolis, and I've got a Nock On sticker in the back of my truck. I bet you weekly, I'm cruising down the highway, and somebody pulls up next to me, and they're like, Nock On, and just, you know, the sticker on the back. It's everywhere. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
It's neat, and we put one. You put one on Jake's truck last year, and he gets it all the time. So
that's awesome.
It's really neat. Yeah,
we need to make him a blue one.
He talked about that. Let's keep the brand. Let's not change up the goodwill and the brand because my kid wants a blue sticker. That may be going over the top just a little bit.
I know, but dude, think of how cool he'd be if someone's like, how'd you get the blue one? Well, I know him.
Oh,
what?
Well, that's come out. It's, you know, we spend a lot of time at where we are. There's really nice facilities in Minneapolis for archery. There's really cool outdoor ranges. You know, you kind of walk through like you're on a golf course, and you go through like a mini tack.
Yeah,
is really what it is. And my boys spent a lot of time up there, and we were doing something. And Jake is now shooting that carbon mock, and like, oh, I didn't know that these come in all black. I thought they only came in the green with the. It was like, oh, my dad knows. John, you know,
knows something.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh God, here we go. Here we go, kid.
Yeah,
it's good fun.
I would have milked that out way harder than that though too. Like, he's a good kid.
Who knows what he's saying when I'm not there?
Yeah, I hope he is.
Yeah,
you know, I hope he is.
They're both into it. I have to say, I've been really lucky that, you know, my two little guys. I've got a 17-year-old Jake, 13-year-old Grant. They are deep down the hole. They just love archery.
What got you into it? Like, where did it start for you?
When I was a young kid, maybe 12 or 13, my stepdad was a hunter extraordinaire. He was on the Wisconsin Game Congress. He was hardcore hunter.
Really?
Yeah.
And where was he based out of?
Janesville, Wisconsin.
Oh, really? Okay.
And
was he part of that archery club there? There's Janesville Bowman there.
Yep.
if I remember.
He would shoot there occasionally.
Okay.
I'm not sure if he was a member of the club, but
Yeah.
he was his passion in life was to introduce new hunters. That was just his thing. So I was an unsuccessful bow hunter forever. We did primarily gun hunting, but at an early age I got bows and loved it. I mean, I took, 2-inch styrofoam, rigid styrofoam insulation and duct tape block targets back when I was a kid and would just shoot for hours and hours. We didn't have real great access to land.
Yeah.
But I shot constantly and just, self-taught. But then when I went to college, it kind of stopped. Law school, when I was out in Washington, D.C., there's just not as many opportunities there. But when I moved back to the Midwest in about 2004, I remember my first year, I got a nice extra bonus, and I'm like, I'm going to buy another bow. This is a great opportunity. And since
Where were you then?
Minneapolis.
Oh, you were in Minneapolis?
Yeah.
So what'd you buy?
I went to the local shop. The first one I bought was a Matthews Reason.
Who was it?
There was a shop up in the Maple Grove, Minnesota area called Archery Specialists.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's where I bought it and worked with those guys. Good group of people. Really lucky. Great community up in the Minneapolis area.
Yeah, the reason I think would have been after 04.
I think maybe it was
7.
It could be. I moved to the cities in 04. It might have been a year or two. My son was born, but the reason that was the year I got my first bow again.
Yep.
And I hunted a lot. My folks had really good hunting land down in southern Wisconsin. I just wasn't successful, and I didn't shoot my first animal with a bow until I was 40 years old.
Oh, man.
So for me, it's relatively, since then I've been on a tear.
Yeah.
But for years and years, it was just tough luck.
That's legit, too, because there's so many people out there that are, like, finding archery later in life, and it's almost cool that you can experience. What's cool about it is you're at a place in your life where you actually aren't, like, super struggling, hopefully.
Right.
Whereas, for me, when someone said, like, hey, I'm going to go hunt Pike County, Illinois during the rut, and you're like, how much, what's that like? And they're like, well, it's $1,500. This is going back at two decades.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? You're paying $1,500 to shoot a deer.
Yeah.
And whereas now, like, a good deer hunt, unless you've done your due diligence, like, you're going to have that much invested. Right. So, it's cool that you're at a spot where you have the ability to, like, do some of the cooler stuff, like, when you want to do it, technically.
Yeah. It's, the battle is always time. And
you're in awesome shape, dude. Like, I'm
for an old guy.
Yeah, but when we first met, you were right at 250, right?
249.
The first time,
248, 249. Yeah.
Where was the first time we ever, like, actually officially met? Was it in Salt Lake?
Turkey hunt. Here when Barklow was here, Wes was here, Andy came down.
My dad.
Your dad was here. Remember we podcasted with your dad?
Oh, that's right.
Up front.
Oh, damn.
Childhood story time with your dad. Yeah.
Me making those bills, dude. Hustling.
Candy hustle.
Yeah, because, that's right, because I forgot. You freaking knew Nerds.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. We were trying to see if
Nerds
we could get some
were
green
a freaking high profit item, dude. That's like clover seed.
Yeah.
That's clover seed in a way smaller box.
Yeah.
You could take Nerds and bust those things up, handful at a time for a freaking quarter, and you could quadruple your money in
easily
15 minutes on the playground.
Wonder what the kids are doing now. It's still.
Let me just tell you, it's not going to be Nerds.
Yeah, exactly right. I don't want to really know. I think I don't want the answer
I'm not
to my
going
own question.
There. I did Nerds, and I turned out all right, kids.
Yeah, yeah. What is a good Wisconsin, Illinois deer? I've got a little place of my own, so I'm very fortunate.
I don't know, what would it be like to go to, like, Tom Enderbo's now?
I have no idea.
In, like, Buffalo County, right?
$3,000, $4,000. I don't. I'm guessing. I have no idea.
I would guess that too.
Yeah.
I mean, inflation's a bitch.
Right. Yeah. Everything gets a little bit more expensive, but
yeah, imagine like going there. And there's dudes paying like $4,000, and they're like, and you just say, yeah, I came here. I used to pay $1,500.
You see it already. I've only been going out west for 3 years elk hunting.
Yep.
And every year.
And people are saying, I used to not pay nothing.
Right.
To freaking, get a tag here or trespass through here or whatever.
But it's so nice now. And look, I appreciate, we're really lucky. We're very, very fortunate. We're blessed. There's no question about that. When I was younger, we used to hunt in northern Wisconsin over by Peshtigo area, Marinette County.
I don't think I've ever been up there.
North of Green Bay.
Okay.
Upper northeast.
Northeast. You said, I thought you said Wisconsin. Did you say Minnesota? You said
Wisconsin. Yeah, northeast Wisconsin. So you go up Oshkosh, Green Bay.
Right before the UP then?
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I grew up hunting with my stepdad on public land.
And that's super big woods.
Super huge big woods. And, this was...
You're getting a bag of apples
exactly.
at the freaking general store,
and
right?
He was hardcore. He hunted like you hunt. He's out, an hour before the sun comes up, and he's not getting out of the tree until an hour after the sun goes down.
Yep.
And, half the time I was on a limb rather than a tree stand, and my legs are... Some jackass would come by with a 5-gallon bucket and sit down at the base of your tree. I mean, it was just all this stress about different, so there are real benefits to taking advantage. Either get some land or do a nice paid hunt. You get people to scout for you. And, it's otherwise I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know out west.
It's a hard parallel because I feel like I like to speak the truth about stuff, but I feel like, some of the public hunting stuff is a little bit skewed because, one, I know some people 100% that are making out that they're hunting public land, and they are not. I know because I know, it's just like, oh, really? You're going to play that off? Whatever. And I'm not going to call people out, but it's also there's people watching this that are banking it on it.
Right.
But there's also parties of people that are hunting public land and doing really well.
Right.
But here's the thing. If, around here, there's several different pull-ins for public land.
Okay.
There's one not far from me, right? If I were hunting public land and I pulled in there and, if I go to a lake and I pull up to a boat launch and there's freaking 100 people parked in the spots and I'm just like, I'll go to a different launch.
Right.
When mass groups are moving into hunt a public area zone, they're going to be successful because there's freaking 10 dudes that are hunting as a group.
Right.
Right. And it's not like they're having a bunch of contestment,
they're working together.
They're working together and coming in and dominating an area because of numbers. So yeah, it just gets one of those things where if you or I were hunting together and we went out west and we went out, or honestly, where you're talking in Wisconsin is a perfect example.
Right.
Because
big woods.
I went up there hunting and then realized, oh damn, there's whole construction crews that come up here every year. They take their 5 days off and there's 40 dudes that roll up here and everybody's got 10 cases of beer and this is a freaking party zone. I'm out. I'm going to freaking western Wisconsin. And yeah, every year they kill a good buck but you know what? It's no one else is coming in because they've just overtook the public land.
Right.
They've no one else, you're not going to go in there and compete with 15 or 20 dudes that are doing their drives.
You can't.
Or
and
they've already mapped out where they're all going. And then if some person comes in the middle, you're kind of bouncing around between them and they're just like, what's up, dude? And then you just feel I'm not dicking around with this.
That's just it. It was really not that fun anymore because one, you were stressed about who's showing up. There's always some asshole that shows up that isn't necessarily safe. So for me, that was sort of always on my wish list, dream, whatever you want to say, is to have just a nice little chunk where I could go with my kids where I know it's going to be safe.
Yeah.
You know what it's like in Wisconsin during gun season. It sounds like there's a damn war going on. Mm-hmm. Well, we're good. I know if they stay on the west side of the property, they're going to be fine. They're going to be good. So, yeah, it's been fantastic.
I tell people all the time, like, you really should put a value on your time. And like, even if there's something where it's like, this might not be affordable, but you also need, like, if you're going to go out west and do a DIY public hunt, and it's going to take you 4 to 5 trips out there before you're actually going to, it's not about having success. It's about having opportunity.
Right.
Because in my opinion, like, opportunity is what breeds knowledge.
Right.
You learn from mistakes and you learn from success. But if you don't have an opportunity, you're not going to have either one of those things. So at some point you have to put a value of, okay, I might have to, honestly, for me, I didn't drink till I was 27 years old. So like, I didn't go to bars, I didn't party, I didn't drink. So guess what? Like, every freaking penny I had was just,
budgeted for the hunt.
$50 a week, put into a freaking little account.
Yeah.
That was my hunting account. $50 a week.
And that's the big tension for, I'm really lucky where I have the ability to, bounce around a little bit and have some time. But
you also didn't hunt till you were 40, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I hunted a lot as a kid, but like to the extent that I'm doing now with the bow. But I have a day job, and it takes a lot of time and energy, and I got to make sure my clients are taken care of. And if I've got a project that's due that weekend, I'm not going hunting that weekend.
Yeah.
That's just the way I'm wired. And for some of these hunts where out west, I just wouldn't have the time to get appropriate opportunities. So must be nice. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice, but
you get after, though.
I wouldn't be able to do it with my limited time unless I had to throw a few dollars at it. I don't think I would be able to do it.
But you also put an incredible amount of time. Like, you call me at times where I'm like, dude, why are you working right now? Why are you working right now? And you're just like, it's cool. Like, I need to do it.
Right.
And it really is what separates people, is like people that put in extra effort, like extra credit. I don't know if extra credit has ever not been rewarded to me in life.
Oh,
like
100%.
At some point, it's like, and honestly, I was always the person, mainly because I was borderline ineligible in grades, but I was always like, hey, is there any extra credit? And they'd be like, yeah, you could do a paper on blah, blah, blah. And then, hey, is there extra credit? And then honestly, when I was, working for people hourly, hey, is there something else I could do? Or, is there a way I could like do something else in the meantime and, try to learn something different and it just seems like that never goes unanswered.
No, and you try to teach the kids, work hard to play hard. Mm-hmm. And we try to really live that. We work really hard. We work crazy hours. We work all-nighters on occasion. But I want to make sure my client's taken care of, so they call me back. It's a really big deal to me. I always say I'm not the smartest lawyer in the world, but I'm pretty sure they're not going to outwork me.
Yeah.
I have no worries digging in. If we've got to do this for a week, we'll do it for a week.
I still want to see I want to see Angry Andy in action.
See, Angry Andy.
I want to see that freaking
Angry
animal.
Andy comes out, but he's most effective if he doesn't come out too often.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, that's 100% true. It's 100% true. And I know deep down, he's going to be passionate, and like if the time came, like he's gonna stand his ground. But what's funny is we've never seen each other in that capacity.
No.
So it would kind of, I don't know, it'd probably be like if all of a sudden you saw me go into like full competitive mode.
Right.
You know, whereas you'd just be like, whoa, dude, you're normally Johnny the, surfer, archer, go with the flow, bro.
Right.
You're not freaking intense.
And that I try to actually project that to a certain extent. Calmness, it lets you listen better.
Yeah.
It lets you strategize more. When it's game time, But I'm also, what's really great about my job is I'm not a litigator. So if I'm in a courtroom, there's a real problem. I'm more of a strategy player. But I've got really super talented litigators on my side. And I love stirring the pot. And then,
that sounds like an awesome place to sit.
It is. And then when it's time, I've got a whole office full of really, really great litigators that do outstanding work. And it's fun. It works out really, really well. It works out really, really well.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool that it's in a way a game too.
100%. It's strategy.
Yeah.
It's strategy. It's putting a plan in place. It's not moving too fast.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It's a hunt.
That's
right?
where my archery suffers. I tend to want to go too fast. I want to slow down.
Slow your roll, bro.
Slow your roll. But, in business, it's the same way. You have to be strategic and put those building blocks in place. Yeah. And sometimes it's frustrating because you think it takes just a little bit too slow. But it's usually the better plan.
Yeah,
right?
You're laying the solid foundation to dig the freaking heels in when you're ready to,
Right. I mean, think about your last elk hunt, right? My guess is there is a lot of slow. Mm-hmm. And then when it goes, it's hyperdrive.
Yeah.
And, my career's like that too.
That's cool. Well, dude, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
We got
Thanks
to
for
get
having
out of
us
here.
down.
We got to go shoot.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Thanks for having us
everybody.
down.
Be sure to check out knockonarchery.com for our full line of custom designed products, as well as free in-depth education and bow hunting entertainment to help you shoot at your best.